Waving a big katla fish in his hands, Sharadwat Mukherjee went door-to-door canvassing for votes before Thursday's election to the state legislature in the eastern Indian state of West Bengal. Mukherjee is a candidate from Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP, which rules nationally but has never come to power in the state, which has a greater population than Germany, more than 90 million people. Washington, D.C., the latest battle in United States congressional redistricting has been decided, with voters in Virginia approving redrawing the state's electoral map. The result of Tuesday's referendum on Virginia redistricting is widely expected to benefit Democrats in their fight to retake control of the slimly Republican-controlled U.S. House of Representatives in the midterm vote in November. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has approved a plan to provide electric bikes to government employees up to BPS 16 on easy instalments as part of efforts to expand the use of electric vehicles. The decision was taken during a high-level meeting chaired by the Prime Minister on Wednesday to review measures for promoting electric mobility. Pakistan LNG Limited has issued its first spot tender for liquefied natural gas, LNG, since December 2023 amid supply shortfalls triggered by the US-Israeli war against Iran. The company is seeking bids from international suppliers for 3 LNG cargoes of around 140,000 cubic meters each for delivery on April 27 to 30 and on May 1, 7 and 8, 14 at Port Qasim in Karachi, according to an advertisement issued on Thursday for the tender that closes on April 24.
And for creative and marketing teams, a simple cloud storage solution often falls short. These teams need to sift through large numbers of files to find what they're looking for. The problem is getting worse. AI is accelerating content generation and meaning more media files than ever, which makes the task even trickier. A New York-based startup called Shade is building a cloud storage platform designed for agencies, sports media teams, consumer brands, real estate companies, and podcasters to store and search their media files easily.
India's mobile app market is generating record revenue, with in-app purchases crossing $300 million in the first quarter, up 33% year-over-year, according to Sensor Tower, but much of that spending is flowing to global platforms. Non-gaming apps were the main driver of growth in Q1, generating over $200 million in in-app purchase revenue, rising 44% year-over-year and increasing their share of overall spending, Sensor Tower said in its report. The gains were led by categories including utilities, video streaming and generative AI.
And the Federal Board of Revenue has reduced the valuation rates for immovable properties in 5 major cities of Punjab, making targeted changes in selected areas rather than carrying out a blanket revaluation. The revised rates, which took effect on April 22, 2026, apply to Faisalabad, Gujranwala, Multan, Bahawalpur and Sialkot. The new valuation tables will be used to calculate federal taxes, including capital gains tax and withholding taxes on property transactions. India and Pakistan are already paying a heavy price for not trading directly. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz has created a new urgency for transboundary trade and energy cooperation, and it has simply made the old argument impossible to dismiss. And the global goodwill generated by the Islamabad talks has given Pakistan a new opportunity to win international support and initiate talks on regional economic and energy integration and direct trade between regional countries. And 81% of Pakistan's oil imports pass through the strait. India depends on the Gulf for 40 PC of its oil and 80 PC of its gas. When daily tanker traffic collapsed from 150 vessels to 3, and both economies lost access to their primary energy supply, oil prices surged, import bills exploded, currencies weakened, and stock markets fell sharply in both countries. Pakistan's current account surplus, and earned for the first time in nearly a decade, evaporated before anyone had time to celebrate it. And Islamabad. Road transport of petroleum crude and products to and from Attock Oil Refinery RL was restored late last night with the support and intervention of Petroleum Minister Ali Pervez Malik and the General Headquarters, GHQ. The refinery's management confirmed a day earlier the refinery was forced to shut down due to road closures. and IT took 5 years of negotiations to end the Vietnam War. The Paris Accords were signed in January 1973 by a beleaguered presidential administration after 5 years of negotiations that had begun in 1968. And the most important breakthroughs along the way occurred in the secret talks held between Henry Kissinger and Le Duc Tho, who represented the Viet Cong. There were 68 rounds of these secret talks that Kissinger describes in his memoirs, and the one thing to take away from it is how meticulous, exacting, and diabolically complicated these kinds of talks can be. Of course, there are key differences between then and now. That war dragged on for years and had close to 1 million combatants, all told, from both sides, tens of thousands of Vietnamese prisoners exchanged for hundreds of American ones, and the talks involved 4 sides. This war is less than 2 months in and has seen no ground engagements, save for a limited operation, has no prisoners, and only 2 sides that need to be brought together for an agreement. This makes the diplomacy somewhat less complicated, but even then, and it is a good idea to not underestimate the task at hand. And Lamine Yamal was injured while converting a penalty in Barcelona's Spanish League win against Celta Vigo. Yamal scored Barcelona's first goal in the 40th minute on Wednesday and immediately looked to the bench and signalled that he was hurt. And predictive market platform Kalshi has punished 3 unnamed United States political candidates for taking part in insider trading by betting on their own campaigns. In a statement on Wednesday, Kalshi explained that it had taken the enforcement action after launching a new raft of safeguards.
That. United States Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent has said that several allies in the Gulf region and Asia have requested currency swap lines from the US to help them with the energy shocks and other fallout from the US-Israel war on Iran. That. Bessent told US senators on Wednesday that both the US and the United Arab Emirates would benefit from a proposed swap line, the act of central banks exchanging currency to provide liquidity that can stabilize markets in times of economic uncertainty, that US President Donald Trump said he was considering on Tuesday.
And 2 cabinet-level ministers in Peru have resigned after interim President Jose Maria Balcazar announced he would defer a decision to buy F-16 fighter jets from the United States company Lockheed Martin. Defense Minister Carlos Diaz and Foreign Minister Hugo de Zayla cited their opposition to the move in their resignation letters on Wednesday. And 15 South American migrants and asylum seekers recently deported from the United States to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, say they are facing pressure to return to their countries of origin, despite concerns for their safety. Women from Colombia, Peru and Ecuador told the Reuters news agency that since being deported to the Central African nation last week, they have been given no credible options other than going back to their home countries. And National Resources Limited said its Daragwan area site in Balochistan came under attack from unidentified assailants on Wednesday evening, prompting a swift response from security forces. In a statement issued on April 22nd, the company said the incident took place at around 5:45 p.m. It added that security forces, including the Frontier Corps, responded quickly and secured the area. And an Israeli airstrike killed a Lebanese journalist and wounded another on Wednesday while they were working near the border with Israel, according to their employer and rescuers. The Civil Defense Agency's press office said rescuers were able to recover the body of martyred journalist Amal Khalil, who was killed as a result of a hostile airstrike that targeted a house in the town of Al Tiri. Islamabad, Lior. The Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan has approved 2 more initial public offerings, Sitara Petroleum Service Limited and LSE SPAC I Limited, on the Pakistan Stock Exchange, PSX. With these approvals, the total number of IPOs in FY26 has reached 11. And Lahore. The Bank of Punjab has signed a strategic memorandum of understanding with Stacks to transform Pakistan's remittance landscape and advance its digital financial ecosystem. According to a press release, the partnership was formalized on Wednesday with an agreement signed by Chief Executive and President Zafar Massoud and Stack's co-founder Munib Ali. And PM meets Iranian ambassador, hopes both sides will ink peace deal for permanent end to conflict. Dar speaks to Turkish counterpart, meets UK envoy, and says dialogue only viable path. Insiders say efforts in full swing to bring both sides to table. Extension created space for diplomacy, Islamabad. And Paki's Daunton on Wednesday kept its focus on sustaining the diplomatic track after facilitating a unilateral extension of the ceasefire between Iran and the US, and as indications emerged that a second round of talks could take place within the next few days.
That fuel supply to Islamabad, Peshawar airports likely to be affected. Goods transporters want district authorities to reopen roads. Traders warn of price hikes as supply chain disruptions persist. Matter referred to Punjab Govt. Regional Transport Authority official says Rawalpindi. Suspension of goods transport in Rawalpindi and Islamabad has led to a shortage of edibles and fuel.
And Trump says resumption of negotiations in Islamabad possible within 36 to 72 hours, appreciates Tehran for stopping execution of detained women. Pezeshkian welcomes dialogue, cites breach of commitment and blockade and threats as main obstacles. Trump denies media reports about deadline and says no time pressure surrounding ceasefire. Ghalibaf says complete truce only makes sense if not violated by naval blockade. Iran seizes 2 cargo ships attempting to cross Strait of Hormuz. And another vessel comes under fire, Washington's Tehran. As the Iran-US ceasefire extension created space for further diplomacy, US President Donald Trump on Wednesday hoped a second round of talks could take place within 2 to 3 days, and despite persistent mistrust.
That Manchester City ended Arsenal's 6-month stay on the Premier League summit and condemned Burnley to relegation with a laboured 1-0 victory at Turf Moor on Wednesday. Erling Haaland's clinical finish after 5 minutes could have paved the way for a boost to City's goal difference, but they lacked a cutting edge as Burnley dug deep.
And Tesla CEO Elon Musk kicked off the company's first quarter earnings call with a monetary heads-up, or, depending on the mindset of the investor, a warning. Tesla's capital expenditures will skyrocket to $25 billion in 2026 and far outpacing its previous annual spend as it races to stay ahead of the competition and transitions to an AI and robotics company, according to its first quarter earnings report. That figure, and which covers what Tesla plans to spend on physical assets outside of its day-to-day operating expenditures, is 3 times higher than its annual capex budget in previous years. For comparison, and Tesla's annual capital expenditures were $8.5 billion in 2025, $11.3 billion in 2024, and $8.9 billion in 2023. And Bluesky isn't the only company leaning into AI to help build custom feeds, it seems. Amid a slate of recent product releases, X this week announced the launch of Grok-powered custom timelines, and which let you dive into one of over 75 specific topics through curated feeds that can be pinned to your home tab. The company touted the feature as one of the biggest changes to the app to date, and saying it uses Grok's AI to not only build these custom timelines, but also personalize them for individual users. And Elon Musk said Wednesday that millions of Tesla owners will need hardware upgrades to run a future version of its full self-driving software that doesn't require human supervision. After he and Tesla spent years promising that wouldn't be the case, the admission could open the company up to legal challenges from customers who bought Teslas on the belief that the cars were just one software update away from being able to drive themselves. And at Google Cloud Next this week, the tech giant announced a bevy of new updates to Workspace, its subscription-based productivity suite aimed at professionals. As you might expect, the updates are heavy on AI, integrating new automation tools into various workflows, everything from drafting emails to organizing Google Sheets. Overall, the changes are clearly designed to give office workers a leg up in their pursuit of less busy work. Here's some of what is Ryan Roslansky stepped down as LinkedIn's CEO on Wednesday after 6 years running the world's largest professional network. Dan Shapiro, the company's COO, takes over immediately. Roslansky's tenure deserves attention. And he joined LinkedIn in 2009. He was one of Jeff Weiner's first hires and spent more than a decade working through nearly every corner of the business before taking the top job in June 2020 and at the height of pandemic-era labor market chaos. Microsoft acquired LinkedIn in 2016. And Tesla saw an uptick in revenue and profit year over year, figures buoyed by an increase in automotive revenue and other services, including subscriptions to its full self-driving advanced driver assistance system, which reached 1.28 million. Tesla shares rose 4% in after-hours trading following the release of its first quarter earnings report, driven by its free cash flow and increases in revenue and profit on a year-over-year basis. And earlier this month, NASA's Artemis II mission sent 4 astronauts to orbit the moon and used new laser communication systems to beam dramatic images back to Earth. One of the receivers, though, wasn't hosted by the US Space Agency. A low-cost terminal built by the companies Observable Space and Quantum Opus and operated by the Australian National University pulled down data broadcast from a spacecraft at the moon at a rate of 260 megabits per second.